the Citroën C6. This is a 3-liter diesel. It's the last engine that ever equipped the Citroën C6. My model is from 2011. It's a 3-liter diesel V6 developing 241 horsepower. This engine was developed with Peugeot Citroën alongside with Ford. It was the time when Ford was owning Jaguar and Land Rover. So you can find this kind of engine on some Range Rovers, Jaguar, for example, the XG. So it's a very reliable and well-born engine, let's say. I really appreciate this engine. It's powerful, smooth. You don't really feel it thanks to the isolation of the car. It doesn't like vibrate or anything. It has a very good reliability. I own this car since almost 5 years now. It's a 2011 model, as I told you. We are in 2023 and I never had any issues with it. I mean, it's very reliable. At the contrary of the 2.7 liters V6, which has a pretty bad reputation. I never owned one, so I can only tell by what I read and what I heard about it, but this one I can tell you is really reliable and very well. It had a very decent power, and the performance are up to the expectations of such category of car, because it was a very expensive executive car when it was new, and it's the concurrent of the Mercedes E-Class, the Audi A6 and the BMW 5 Series, and its price tag was in the same zone. So this is not any Citroën. This Citroën was intended to be a real concurrent to the German flagships, and they succeeded. They nailed it. The problem was the reputation of the brand, because for this price tag, around, let's say, 60,000 euros of the time, who would like to buy a Citroën? That was a problem of the logo, problem of the image of the brand. People really preferred to have, for this price, a German brand that sounded more prestigious and that would make their ego stronger. So that was the problem of the C6. The image of the brand was not high enough to attract enough customers, let's say. So, talking about the design, that's when things are extremely interesting. I find this car beautiful, really. It looks like a concept car on road, and it's very similar to the concept car that started this design, the Citroën Lignage, that appeared in the late 90s. And actually, they really succeeded to make this car very similar to the concept car, and it really looks like a UFO on the road. That's what I really like. I like that I drive something very different from what you see every day. It's very rare to cross another one on the road, and when you see another one, very often the people like flash the light at you or make you a sign, because you feel like you are kind of a small community who still keep these things alive. So it's a very pleasant feeling, I would say. So I really like this shape. It looks like it doesn't have a trunk in the back, and it's a fastback somehow, but in fact no, because if you look at the back, there is actually a trunk. Thanks to this concave window design, they placed a real trunk in the back that opens exactly as any other 3-volume car. So it's actually a sedan and not a fastback. On the back side you can see the rear spoiler, which deploys at a speed of around, if I'm not wrong, 75 kilometers per hour for the first position, and the second position on highway after 125 kilometers per hour. So it really has an active spoiler, which was something extremely rare in 2007 when the car was released. I remind you that my model is the last iteration of the Citroën C6. It was built in 2011 and they stopped the production in 2012. So yeah, I really appreciate the lines of this car. You can see that here, very interesting element. This piece of chrome is in one piece all the way to the back. That was something extremely hard to produce, and for the logistics of production and like from the factory when it was built to the assembly line, it's a nightmare to build such long pieces of chrome, that it stay in one piece, that it's not broken, that it doesn't arrive scratched or something. Only in my mind, the Mercedes CLA shooting brake has this kind also of one piece chrome line like this. So yeah, because they could have very easily just cut it here and make it out of two, but they decided to go all the way in the premium feeling of this car in terms of design, and they did it. But strangely on this car, I would say that the best goes alongside with the worst, because they made a lot of efforts on such small details that people wouldn't notice. For example, this very long line made of one piece, the concave window, which is also a nightmare to produce, a nightmare to replace, that cost really a lot to the brand. Of course, I forgot to talk about it, the hydropneumatic suspension, which is active, which can higher and lower the car, which is a real heaven to drive. I can tell you that driving long distance on this car on the highway, on some countryside road, feels really like floating above the road. It's a feeling that I never had on any other car. I think you can only find this kind of feeling on some Rolls-Royce, because Rolls-Royce bought actually the patent of the hydropneumatic suspension that was developed by Citroën, and now Citroën don't make it anymore, but Rolls-Royce keep this technology alive. So if you want to have this feeling, you have to go to a totally other price tag category of car and drive a Rolls-Royce. So that makes this car really interesting in the feelings. It's something extremely, it's something very unique, and I would describe it as very sensual. Driving this car is a sensual experience. It has something, I don't know, something very unique, something that touches your sense, because when you start the car raises immediately, like you feel like it's welcoming you. Like when you open the car gets lower on its suspension, and when you start the engine, it raises and go to the driving position, and after you can adjust manually inside the car the different level of heights. So there are 3 levels of heights. One is low, one is medium, and one is very high. The high one is for the maintenance only. I was talking to you about this concave window. So this concave window is the guideline to the rest of the car. Remember this design. Look at this shape. You see this circle shape? You will find this shape in many interior designs of the car. And I think that this is a voluntary thing from the designers, that they wanted to remind this concave shape of the rear window. That is a tribute to the Citroën C6. That is a car from the 80s. And this car, in fact, is a very good tribute to the Citroën C6, because it takes all of its aspects, especially like the third window, which is going very deep in the end of the car, and which is very large. This is really a Citroën C6 gimmicks that they took from it. So yes, it's a very fine machine that you don't see every day, and if you want to drive something different, if you are ready to face because this car can be at the same time hated for its design and at the same time adored by some. This is a kind of a piece of art. As this car is the second version of the Citroën C6, there were some small differences that you can see from the outside. And especially the biggest one is the size of the mirrors. The mirrors on the second version have this shape. They are pretty large compared to the first generation, which were very thin. And I think that it was maybe a safety issue. They decided to make it larger. So that's how you can the most easily differentiate the phase 2 to the phase 1 of the Citroën C6. And the rest of the design, they stayed very similar to the first version. Also, if you want to differentiate a 3-liter V6 diesel to all the other versions, just look at the exhaust pipes. It's the only version which has the double exhaust pipes. And I find it to be really good looking, much better looking than the single exhaust pipe which is on the left on the regular versions. So the 3-liter petrol, the 2.7 diesel and the 2.2 diesel. They all have one exhaust pipe only on the left side, and here nothing. I think that it gives it a kind of a balance from the back and a sort of, I wouldn't say sportiness, but kind of strength. It looks kind of strong, let's say. Not sporty, but strong and well balanced. Talking about proportions of the Citroën C6, a very interesting aspect that makes this car unique is its very long distance between the front wheel and the front of the car. You see, there is almost 1 meter of distance between the logo of Citroën and the front, and in the back it's the total opposite. So this is a very Citroën aspect of the design that is a tribute to the Citroën CX and the Citroën DS, of course, which is the ancestor of this car. And also a very interesting piece of design. I was telling you about this very long piece of chrome that goes all the way to the back, and this third window, which is extremely large. Look how far back the third window is going. In fact, it finishes even after the wheel, which is something that you don't see every day in cars design. This is very unique and gives all its personality to the C6. And after this line finishing the rear lights that have a very weird boomerang shape. Something that I find very elegant also in the back of the C6 is this chrome line that they put above the exhaust. It really gives this car a kind of, it looks a bit larger thanks to this line and gives a lot of elegance. I'm not for putting chromes a lot on cars, but I think that the C6 made it in a very elegant way with this line of chrome that goes around and the circling of the windows. It's a very elegant way of using the chrome. And of course this car has a extremely good CX, so the air penetration coefficient of the Citroën C6 is amazing. It really allows this car to drive at high speed on the highway without consuming a lot of fuel, and the fact that it's a 3-liter diesel also helps a lot. It's an amazing way to cross Europe. I actually drive very often from Paris in France to Warsaw in Poland, which is a trip that I do in around 12 to 13 hours with just stops to refuel, to have a drink, a little break, and I continue. And I keep on going without being tired or having any pain in my back or any wish to really stop and make spend a night somewhere. So this car really allows me to do this trip in one way and on one day, and that's amazing. I arrive after in Poland or in France fully rested, like I had a kind of relaxation session in this car. It's like a spa on wheels. A very smart design thing of Citroën at this time was really the logo. First, I find this logo really much more beautiful than what they made after, when they made it more round. From the front, you immediately notice the round fog lights that goes along with the xenon headlights. I really like that it looks like 4 eyes. They are all round. So I like this touch that they took the same exact shape from the fog lights and the headlights. And I really appreciate the design of Citroën at this time, that they integrated this beautiful chevron logo alongside with the air intake in the front. In fact, it's a very smart way to integrate a logo, because here it's an air intake. The air can flow inside. So that was very, very smart. And the logo of this time, I find it much more elegant and, I don't know, premium looking than what they made after, when they started to make it more round. You can see the difference on some Citroën C5, where the first version has exactly this grille, like mine, and then on the second phase they added this more round Citroën logo, which started to look much less elegant and more, I don't know, let's say it lost its elegance when they changed the logo. And I don't talk about now, when they totally took like one of the oldest logo of Citroën that looks too vertical to be to give a good balance to the car. So I don't think that the new logo of Citroën will make Citroëns more attractive, unfortunately. Also, I decided to equip my C6 with Michelin cross-climate tires, because I'm living in Poland actually, and the winters can be a bit snowy, so the Four Seasons tires are not a luxury, let's say, and it gives the car a little kind of quirk that it reminds a bit of the logo of Citroën, and I like it. You see from the back, you can see the logo, and at the same time the logo on the tires. Getting inside the Citroën C6. So these are frameless doors, so when you start to open the door handle, the window goes down, allowing you to open the door. It's a double glazed window glass, so it's a pretty well insulated interior thanks to this double glazed windows, and it's also an additional safety feature for the car. So here we are inside. And what you can tell inside is that, okay, this interior is pretty outdated because of these, for example, but this still looks pretty modern, and that was really ahead of its time in 2007 when it was released. You have the speedometer here and all the informations you need. You have a head-up display that it is very useful, that I use all the time. Here you have this infotainment screen. Here is the problem. Really a lot of adjustments, a lot of buttons and switches, and that's a nightmare to get used to operate this. It takes you a few weeks, even a few months, when you start to own a C6 or a Peugeot 407 at the same time. I mean, it's exactly the same system. Here you have a very beautiful shift gear, automatic of course. It's really a beautiful piece, like with wood and this aluminium finish and leather. Really beautiful, with the C6 logo on it. That feels very premium and very sad when you just look up and suddenly you see this awful central console. I would say that in the Citroën C6 the worst goes alongside with the best, and that's typically one of the examples. You see this, and then you look up and you see this, and that's a pity, because they really put a lot of efforts on a lot of things, but not enough on some important stuffs. For example, the door bins have a very beautiful cinematic of opening. You see they are just sliding down, and then you just lift it down, it goes up. Just press it down, sorry, not lift it, of course. And yeah, that feels very premium, and it's something unique in automobile. I never saw something like this on any other car, so Citroën really did something nice here, but it goes alongside with a lot of cheap stuffs. Like for example, this typically Peugeot Citroën control for the audio. This very cheap looking steering wheel, which by the way with the time starts to fade here, because this is the cruise control. I use it a lot, plus minus cruise limit. There is a cruise control and speed limiter, so I use all the time this cruise control. On the side here you can see the controls for the windows, of course. Here it's to condemn the back windows, and here, like on the Mercedes for example, you have the controls for the seat. There are plenty of controls. It's very comfortable here. You can really adjust at the perfection your seat, and there is memory 1, memory 2, so you can have 2 drivers. By the way, each key is associated with one driver, so if you own a C6 and your wife, for example, is driving the car with her own key, she will have the whole interior of the car taking exactly the position that she chose. I will show you something else. So when you start the car, so when you insert your key, of course this is an old school key of Peugeot Citroën group of this time, the steering wheel goes down, and here we are. This is the Citroën C6 screen. So you have the rounds per minute on top, the speed, the gear on which you are, now it's park, the amount of kilometers that you did with one tank, and the level of fuel in your tank. And here above you have the head-up display that I was talking to you about and that I use all the time. Very minimalist one, quite a primitive one. Well, don't forget that this car is from 2007, but very useful because it's straight in front of you, and it's not too, how to say, it's not screaming in front of you informations. I mean, it's very discreet, you can forget it very easily, but at the same time it's always here, and you don't need to look down, you have everything here. I mean, most important is your speed, at least in France, where we have a lot of automatic radars, and here in Poland it's not a very big issue, but still I use it pretty much. Here you have something very interesting that I told you that they didn't put, well, I will show you a bit later about the engines on the headrest of this car that you don't find. There was on the Peugeot 607, but here they decided to put a headrest. I'll start the engine just to show you the screen. Now the V6 comes alive. So look at that. There is an engine to operate this. I mean, it's something that you move maybe once in the lifetime of the car. That's the sense. But they really put an engine in it. Here you can adjust if you want it bright or less bright. So yeah, that's the infotainment screen. Pretty outdated, but still, that's the phase 2 of the Citroën C6. So this one is have been updated compared to the phase 1. the first version of the Citroën C6, and honestly I prefer this one. You can also find this infotainment on every high-end Peugeot Citroën cars of this period, so the Citroën C5, the Peugeot 407, but you can also find this infotainment system on the Maserati Quattroporte of this period, which is a big surprise, but yeah, the Maserati Quattroporte is using exactly the same system, but adapted to Maserati standards. So yeah, very primitive GPS, but still useful. I use it from time to time when I'm just lazy to plug my phone. One interesting thing when you operate the windshield wipers is the cinematic of the windshield wipers, of course, that they go on the sides like this. But look what happens when I decide to disconnect them. They just hide themselves. They just go out of my sight, which is something very nice that Citroën did to have the best CX possible. That's very nice. I like this detail. Small detail, but something I really like to see when I'm driving on the highway and I'm in automatic mode of the windshield wipers. Suddenly there are some drops, and then when the little shower ends, I see this coming down quietly out of my sight. Also, when you close the air vents, in fact, you still get some air in the Citroën C6 because you have this system of soft diffusion. So they call it soft diffusion. It's not a speaker here that you have. It looks like a speaker, but it's not. It's a soft diffuser of air that you activate through this control here. And by activating it, you get the air going out from here and not anymore from those vents. And it sends the air like in a soft way. Well, it's what Citroën marketed at least. And it sends the air in a soft way in front of you, so that it's not like sent straight to your eyes or making you cold in some parts of your body. It's just going like softly around you. So that was the soft diffusion system that Citroën tried to implement on the Citroën C6. I don't find it especially impressive. I use it all the time. I mean, I'm very rarely using those air vents, but yeah, I think it's also going from here. I mean, it's not only here, so well, it's, I don't know, I'm not impressed by this technology, or maybe I just got used to. Maybe if I wouldn't have it, I would notice it. But yeah, that's the soft diffusion system. Here we are inside the Citroën C6. So in the back seat, the position of the driver's seat is set up to my settings. So I'm 1.88 meters. So I'm quite a tall driver, and I can tell you that despite my settings in the front, I have plenty of leg rooms in the back. It's very comfortable. There is a space for the feet going under the driver's seat. And yeah, in this position, I'm ready to go across Europe without any problem. It's very comfortable, very well sound isolated here. I have plenty of space. One thing that I don't really like is the armrest, which is, to my mind, pretty basic and pretty low. Like, if I want really to rest my arm here, I have to bend a little bit on the side. I would prefer it to be a bit higher, maybe to this level. I had a Peugeot 607 just before, and the armrest looked much more premium, and it was equipped with cup holders on each side, and it looked much more premium, and it was higher, and that made it a more comfortable position in the back. I have a control panel here for the air vents. I can adjust if I want the air on my feet or coming out from here. I also have two cigarette lighters of course, because I have two ashtrays, one on each side. I show you again the beautiful cinematic of the door bins. Very premium and very unique thing. So again, this arc of cycle shape that you find everywhere inside this car, that reminds the concave window of the back of the car, steering wheel here, on each door, on each seat. In the back you have a sunshade that is not motorized. It's a very primitive one. On the Peugeot 607 it was a motorized one, so they decided to save some money on the Citroën C6, which is surprising. Or maybe they didn't have enough space in the boots to place an engine. Also on the Peugeot 607 I had motorized headrests. They could go up and down electrically through a command that was not here but on the side of the seat. And on the Citroën C6 they decided not to put any engine here, so they are fully manual. You press here and you higher or lower them. You can make them in different positions. But yeah, that's two things where surprisingly they decided to save money compared to the Peugeot 607, which was a car that was supposed to be less premium than the Citroën C6. So that's surprising, but it's economies, and that's how they did. So when you see this view from the back, I will put a photo of the Tesla Model 3 interior, just for you to compare. I don't pretend that Citroën inspired Elon Musk or any Tesla's designer for the Tesla Model 3 interior, but look, it's pretty similar in fact, and I think that Citroën was in advance in 2007 when they released this car interior, because we have a pretty like minimalist console with a big screen in the center, very simple steering wheel that somehow looks pretty similar to the Tesla Model 3's one of the first version, of course, and this wooden line that is also on the Tesla Model 3. So to my mind, when the Tesla Model 3 was released, I immediately had this this feel that it was kind of the modern version of the Citroën C6 interior, and I think that Citroën was in advance on its time, because it is very minimalist and very simple, but at the same time it's very relaxing interior, I would say. Here also you notice that Citroën C6 has a sports mode. When I press, I have the sport icon. So when I activate it, basically the direction gets more stiff. It's a bit harder to turn, and the suspensions, of course, are getting less soft. Let's say, I wouldn't say that they are getting very sporty, but they get harder, and it's a totally different feeling than the floating effect of the Citroën C6 that you have when you are not in sports mode. So I deactivate it. Here you have the snow and sport mode for the gearbox. Here I'm in sport mode, snow mode. So basically the sports mode makes the shift gear a bit faster. Well, no, contrary, you have to push the gas longer until the gear is shifted up, and yeah, that's basically it. And about the snow mode, it makes the car softer in its acceleration to avoid you to slide on the ice. I mean, to have your wheels spinning on the ice or on the snow. I never use any of them. I mean, the sports mode has no sense on the two-tones Citroën C6, which is car made for comfortable rides and long distance, so totally useless. But the snow mode, well, I never used it, but maybe it can be useful from time to time. And here, the most important thing of the Citroën C6 is the raise and like you can lower and raise your hydropneumatic suspensions from here. So you have a little icon here that shows how much you can raise. So for example, now I'm raising it. It says raise going on. I see that the back of the car is going up and then the front. You can see it slightly. So at this position, it's the middle position. I will show you from the outside. So it's middle height. You can see that the space between the tires and the rest of the car is bigger than usual. And now I will show you the highest level of suspension. Here I press and it's going up. I'll show you from the outside. The back is going up first and then the front. And now we are in the maximum height. So this height is only for maintenance. You can drive up to 10 kilometers per hour with this height. The car looks very weird, so high. But yeah, that's basically the maximum you can do. And it gives the car a totally different look than its usual low position. And now I will try to show you how I lower the car to the minimum so that you see how the car will be dropping. I will try to run out of the car very fast for you to see it from outside. So look at it. Now the car is going low on its suspension. This position is basically the best when you want to leave your car for a few weeks, let's say, because it stops any pressure, it avoids any pressure on the spheres, because the car is sitting low, so the spheres are not pressurized anymore. And yeah, this position is the best to save your sphere and your hydropneumatic system. If you leave your car for long, of course, because it's better not to manipulate those settings too often. So here we have a very good example of the design of the C6 compared to its main concurrent of the same period, by the way, the Audi A6. So look how it looks from the back. I mean, very random German design, and this very, I would say, like very French rear end that is very Citroën C6, very Citroën, I would say. So yeah, here we are in front of like the two concurrents of the same period, and two different personalities, two different visions and approach of automobile. Automobile like art, and automobile like just a means of transport on the German side. I would say that French and Italians, we consider automobile in another way than Germans, which just, for them it's just machines, and the design comes after. In France and in Italy we prioritize the design, even if it removes some practical aspects, and then comes the practicity. And the C6 is the best example of this approach. At night the C6 has those vertical lights that were pretty uncommon for the time, and unlike the Lancia Thesis, which was also a sedan from this period, this is not a LED line, it's just some classic lights inside, but it gives this very nice look from the back, very vertical. And on the side you have those orange lights that are permanently lighted up, also in front, which I will show you. So these are side markers, like you can see on a lot of cars on the US market, for example. So yeah, that's the front of the C6.